Right, okay, so the first point is the name of what it is on the tin. It's a level 6 degree apprenticeship. So the program that we've delivered is essentially equivalent to the third year of the BEng Civil Engineering program. So that's the level of the qualification. So some of the teaching runs in parallel with the third year of the degree program, and that really sets the bar for the entry level to the program. We need people to have a level 4 and a level 5 before they come in, but I'll talk about the entry in a little bit. So it's a level 6 degree apprenticeship. And just a little bit of the history, we originally suggested to the university that they might like to allow us to run the level 4, 5 and 6, which would be the full sort of 5.5 year degree apprenticeship program. The university decided they didn't wish us to run that. They wished us just to develop the level 6 standard program. So that's essentially what we're offering. We are also working to develop a level 7 civil engineering degree apprenticeship, and that's ongoing. But this one's level 6. So the apologies for this mass of colour. I have tried to make the process as simple as possible, but this is basically the way it works. The first thing you need to do is complete an initial needs assessment, an INA. So the student, the apprentice completes this initial needs assessment and sends that in to the university. And Louise will help with the sorting out of that initial needs assessment. And then that comes to me to have a look at, or if I give the admissions tutor job to somebody else, it'll go to somebody else. And we work out basically, have you got the necessary level 5 and the Eng Tech with the ICE or the iStruct that you need in order to come on the program. So that's the first phase of things. Now, provided that initial needs assessment goes okay, then there are a couple of different things that go on in parallel. The first thing to note is that you carry on working for your employer for 80% of the time. So 4 out of the 5 days a week, you're working for the employer, or your person is working for their employer, depending on what your perspective of it is. And for 1 day of the week, you're in the university working on university work. Now, sometimes there'll be, coming up to coursework deadlines and so on, there's going to be more university work to do, and you probably have to work a bit of overtime to sort of get that done. And other times, maybe Easter holidays and so on, things go a little bit more quiet. We acknowledge that. So, roughly, by the time you've sort of added and taken away bits of time working on it or not, then it ends up as about 20% of your time on university work, 80% on employer time. So you spend the 2 years on this university work. So that's your 20%. So and we're running it as 1 day a week rather than as block teaching, which you can pick up at other institutions. So that's a key thing, and a lot of employers seem to be quite keen on that, you've got to release your apprentice for 1 day a week, and they'll be available to carry on working for you for the other 4, because they can carry on getting on with whatever sort of projects they're involved with, rather than taking a break. Okay, so running in parallel with that 2-year program, then you'll have regular meetings, they're called tripartite meetings, between the university, the employer and the student, and Heather very kindly runs most of those. So roughly every 12 weeks or so, there's a meeting. And the whole point about that is to make sure that the employer is happy with the progress, the apprentice is happy with the progress, and that the university are involved in making sure that the work carries on towards this thing that I'll talk about in a minute, called the Endpoint Assessment. So then there's this sort of 3-way interaction going on as part of the program. Now, when you get to the end of the taught program, then you enter this phase called gateway, when you're looking to sort of really complete your skills mapping, which are the necessary knowledge, skills and behavior that you need in order to meet the standard. And then once you've sort of got all of that together, then you do this thing called the endpoint assessment. And the endpoint assessment, we're running with the ICE for the Institution of Civil Engineers to run the endpoint assessment. And that has a few different components. You put in a portfolio, you have to sit an exam, which is reflective. So, you know, it should be okay. And you have to have an interview. But those things should be fine, given that you've done the academic background and you've been working on these knowledge, skills and behaviours required to meet the standard. So that whole process should take about 6 months. And while you're doing that, you're working for your employer full time. And once you've got through that endpoint assessment, then you will have also met all of the required knowledge, skills and behaviours that allow you to register as an incorporated engineer with the ICE. You do need a couple of your industry sponsors to add to your endpoint assessment, but the KSB's knowledge, skills and behaviours that are required for the endpoint assessment also meet the requirements for your IEng. Okay, so that's a little bit about the sort of the structure of the programme. What I really want to talk about is a little bit about the content of this university part here. So, but before I do that, I really just should clarify the entry requirement. Oops. Right, sorry, something's gone a bit wrong here. I was going to do something fancy there with what I do with the students of moving the sheet down, but it doesn't seem to work in this mode. So, okay. So what you need is, in order to come in the programme, you need a foundation degree in civil engineering or some level 5 equivalent. So you need to have done the equivalent of 2 years relevant higher education already. So that could be a foundation degree, it could be an HND, or it could be 2 years from another, another undergraduate degree. We do ask that that's in civil engineering, and the reason for that is that you're going in to work alongside other students who've all done the first 2 years of a civil engineering degree, and the programme requires some background in civil engineering, so you do need to have done some structures, some geotechnics, some materials work. Otherwise, you know, you really are going to struggle. If for Sam on the City College programme, you'll have done enough. You know, we have City College people coming and joining us. I'm sure you'll be fine. Okay. The other thing you need to have is you need to have your Eng Tech. This is usually with the ICE, usually with the Institution of Civil Engineers, but it is possible with the iStruct-E. The advantage of sticking with the ICE is that it becomes slightly easier than when you want to become incorporated. You have to present various other bits of evidence if you're going through iStruct-E. It's still possible, but you've just got extra evidence to show. So you need to have Eng Tech. The other thing is, of course, there's the financial side. So you need employer support, and you need your 2 industry sponsors when it comes to becoming incorporated. And then the other entry requirement is that you need to complete the initial needs assessment. So if people aren't sure as to whether they're up to it or not, one thing they can do is they can get in touch with us and say, am I about right? But the next thing is complete the initial needs assessment, and we can have a more detailed look at where you're at and what's needed. Now, the programme does have quite a design emphasis. There are, significant bits of calculation involved, so we do recommend that you have maths competence. A-level standard is recommended. We do appreciate that there'll be some people interested in the programme who maybe it was a little while ago when they did their maths, or they'd come through other routes. And so maybe, you know, if you've been doing a BTEC, that you'll have been doing some maths as part of that at one of the colleges. That's completely fine. But just some enhanced level of maths is necessary. It's worth flagging up because you know, we don't want to bring the people onto the course thinking it is a discursive management program, when in actual fact it has design related components that are fairly mathematical. That's not to put anybody off. You know, it's possible, lots of people pass and it's fine, but it has the maths element. Okay, so I'm just going to run through this slide very quickly and then show what's in each of the sort of the taught modules. But basically, in the 2 years, you'll arrive and you'll start off with working on water engineering. So this is hydraulics of pipes and channels. You'll go on to do some geotechnics in the second semester. So the first semester runs pretty much up till Christmas. Second semester runs through till June. So you'll do some geotechnics in the second semester, and running alongside those two things, which I'll speak about more in a moment, we run an endpoint assessment preparation module. So I'll go through that, but that runs parallel to these two things. And then in the second of the 2 years, the academic work has some structural engineering design, some further structural engineering design. The numbers are a bit out of sorts there, but that's a minor point. And you also spend some time working on a project which you can get started pretty much at the end of year 1. And alongside that, then we also then work towards this endpoint assessment. What you'll see here is E1 and C1 represents exams and coursework. You'll see that, you know, these modules do have exams at the end of them, but, you know, roughly the split is slightly in favour of coursework, but you know, there are assessments that have to be passed. Okay. Right, so just run through briefly what the modules are. And I'm aware that we're not all sort of students interested in coming on the course, although we have Sam. So I'll just kind of like go through these quite briefly. The water engineering covers areas including, but not limited to, urban drainage, flood management, water resources, river and channel engineering. So this example here, you know, this is the flood alleviation channel at Exeter, for example. So, you know, students will be learning about how to predict and manage flows in water courses, but also things like SUDS and general water management. So I'm using this opportunity to point out that a lot of the teaching is in lectures, so there's a talk component to it, obviously, which is important. We'll support that with laboratory work, and obviously there's a certain amount of student reading around the topic and doing courseworks which are related. So that water engineering, that's the sort of the first thing you meet when you join the program. So you sort of join in October and you spend the first few months doing water engineering. And then after Christmas, you pick up on geotechnical engineering. So the geotechnics module looks at things like soil mechanics. It looks at shallow foundations, deep foundations, retaining structures, and slope stability. So I don't know, this is an example of a bridge that we had a student on placement working on, which is just north of Exeter, on the M5 up through Columpton. And obviously, you know, slope stability here, the foundations for the bridge abutments, you know, the understanding of the slope and the soil stability here is absolutely critical for the bridge design. So, so we need to get the geotechnics side of it right. Okay, so when you finish the hydraulics and geotechnics aspects, then you have your sort of a bit of a summer break involved with the structural analysis and design work. And the structural analysis and design takes pretty much all of the second of the two the second of the years. So we start off with analysis of whole structures, the design of whole structures. So this goes from single-story buildings through multi-story buildings, and we'll introduce you to computer modeling and analysis of structures. And this this uses a program called LUSAS. There are many different programs available, but you have to start off with one of them. And so one of the things that's done in here is looking at the use of approximate methods. So this is fundamentally get your first answer out and then check that against the detail of what the computer program actually tells you to make sure that you're getting a sensible answer. So that's where you start off with in the structural analysis and design. And then you carry on further with structural engineering design. So industry standard design practices, we're building on your previous knowledge and looking at more complex structures, multi-story structures, bridges, and a certain amount of conceptual design that's needed if you're going to sort of design a whole structure. So not only have we got to be able to understand the details of maybe the loading on a beam, but we've got to be able to incorporate that within the structure as a whole. Now, there may be an area of particular interest for you individually, or for the individuals coming on the program. Maybe they want to sort of get more into the hydraulic side. Maybe they want to do something on coastal design, or maybe they want to get involved with properties of concrete, properties of aggregate, or whatever is of interest. So that's a good area then to allow that to develop in the individual project. And it may be something that our apprentice works with the employer on to think of, or to come up with an area which is of interest to both. Typically at the moment we put out a whole range of different projects which people choose from, but if people want to sort of evolve those things a little bit and discuss those with the staff, then that's perfectly okay. And I suppose the other thing is it's an opportunity to get in the labs. We have the ability to test beams, we have the ability to test concrete. We've got excellent hydraulics facilities. The picture you can see there is of the coast basin, where we can do things like measure loading on piles, or example coastal defences. And so it could be lab work, it could be numerical, it could be theoretical modelling, or it could be to do with, I don't know, things like risk in industry, or more management practices. So that's the project. Then of particular interest, then we run these two modules that are called the Endpoint Assessment Preparation. These are pass-fail. I mean, you really shouldn't fail these. What these do is these guide you through the development you need to do in order to pass the endpoint assessment. So they encourage you to look at the knowledge you need to build, the skills you need to show, and the behaviours you need to show, and link the evidence that you've gathered from both the taught part of the programme and also the industry-based work that you're doing alongside, that builds your portfolio up so that you can get through this thing called the endpoint assessment. And we run these two modules, so there's one running each year, and basically at the end of the first year we run a sort of a small version of the endpoint assessment, and by the end of the second year then you've had another go at it in the academic part, and so that then when you're going for the the final endpoint assessment with the ICE, it's actually your third go at it, and you should be reasonably sharp at knowing what those knowledge, skills, and behaviours are, and what you've actually got to present. So we run that alongside both in year 1 and year 2. So you end up with the personal development portfolio that you need for your EPA. Right. I mean, employers are normally interested in this, and so are staff, so are students. Typical view of the timetable, just briefly. Typically, each module has 2 lectures a week, so we try to arrange those on the same day. So this is the start of, or this is part of last November. John Davis is our hydraulics lecturer. So he had a 9 till 11 lecture on a Friday morning, and a 3 till 5 lecture. And then there's time in the middle there for students to be getting on with their own work. And also, you know, if there are lab sessions, which, you know, there'll be 1 or 2 labs as part of each module, usually, there's a bit of time in there for arranging those. So for our sort of full-time students, you know, they might do work on other days, they'll probably be working in the evening, but we're very aware that our degree apprentice students, they've got this slot of time to be working. So, you know, for doing things like courseworks and so on, there is a bit of time in the timetable there where they can get into the library and be cracking on with that work. I mean, this hydraulics module had a coursework and an exam, so, you know, there was stuff to be working towards. COVID has been an interesting experience. Obviously, we've been delivering our modules online using Zoom, and so we did that for pretty much all of the last year. For October this coming year, we really are expecting to be back on campus delivering, and that's the plan. But we're aware that there are Indian variants kicking around and other variants potentially. So, you know, we are ready to continue with online delivery if it's necessary. But the university is very much gearing up towards on campus for next semester. Okay, so at this point, I'm very happy to take any questions. I don't know what the time is, 12:10. So let's just stop the share there.
Yeah, I did just have a quick one about how the kind of the endpoint assessment kind of then filters into the kind of iEng application. Is it once you've completed the endpoint assessment and all things being good, you've ticked every box and, you know, dotted every I and crossed every T, is the iEng application more or less a formality after that, or is there a kind of a chunk of kind of requirements and attributes they want you to then fill in addition to everything you've got from the course?
Yeah, no, there's a in the endpoint assessment application, there's a mapping that shows how the endpoint assessment meets all of the requirements for your iEng. So provided you get the endpoint assessment, knowledge, skills, and behaviours all ticked off, that also meets all of the requirements for your iEng. But there are a couple of extra things you need to do. The first thing you need to do is you need to tick the box that says that you want to apply for your iEng, and the other thing you need to do is you need a couple of industry sponsors. So you need to get those in place as well. So it is possible to do your endpoint assessment without gaining iEng, if that's what you decide, but the EPA ticks the boxes for the iEng. So yeah, that's I mean, all that information is actually on the ICE website, but we have a very, very good link with the ICE, and you know, they really help to guide us through that process. And so if you have questions as you go along, you know, then that's something we can help with.
That's brilliant. Thanks.
So just on that point, John, just to clarify, so you'd get your endpoint assessment after you've done the level 6 apprenticeship course, and in theory that will tick off all the attributes for you to go for your iEng. Is it then a case of, do you still have to go through the actual iEng process, so you still have to do your professional review reports and have your attributes signed off online on the MyICE system? Or
yeah, as I understand it, Jack, that's all part of the EPA. So that's taken as, you know, because you've got your portfolio that you're presenting, you've got your exam, and then you've got the interview. Then those things are all wrapped up, and so I don't think you have to do any extra.
Yeah, okay.
You do need the industry sponsors though.
Yes, included, yeah.
So it is a little bit more than just ticking a box. You have actually got to sort of get your industry sponsors to agree to it.
That's great. Fantastic.
Remarkably joined up, I thought,
Mm.
which is a bit of a relief. Good. Okay. Louise, did you want to say? Yeah,
sorry, I did have another question just to quickly ask. So just going back to the entry requirements then. So like we said, it would be a foundation degree in civil engineering or a level 5 equivalence, as well as an EngTech accreditation with the ICE or the iStructD. Employer support, complete your initial needs assessment as well, and as you said, highly recommended maths competency at A level. So all those things will be required to get on to the level 6 that's there. I think that's great with the inclusion of the EngTech with the ICE and iStructD, because you're then, before you undertake the apprentice course, like I said, if you've got that future goal of going for iEng or CEng, you're already doing some of the attributes as part of your EngTech before going into that. So that will get you in a good kind of mindset and understanding of what you need to achieve to go on to iEng and CEng. Because with myself, in my background, I've gone for iEng and I'm hoping to go for CEng this year. So I've already got my iEng, but I've just been looking in the background at the EngTech attributes, if you like, the areas that are there. And naturally they are similar to the iEng and the CEng ones. So that does set you up quite well. So it's quite good to see that in there, just for feedback there.
Yeah, no, that is okay. That is very good feedback, actually. Thanks for that, Jack. Yeah, no, that's, I mean, I guess from your point of view, you almost, if you're thinking of doing CEng in the future, you might want to hang on and see if we can get this level 7 degree apprenticeship out, and then come back and top up.
I think that the thing is with myself though, it's a case of, because the iEng, when I got it, still counts as the further learning criteria with the ICE.
Okay.
So I can go directly for CEng as it is. But with the level 7 that you were discussing earlier being on the cards, I think that's going to be a great advocate as well. To get in and get in place, definitely.
No, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who've got the civil engineering BEng or BSc, who are then going to be looking to, they want to get chartered. They've got industry support. So I think the level 7, which is the essentially the MSc, but done part-time, is going to be that's going to be quite a useful offering.
Yeah, definitely so. Because I mean, from my experience, so I managed to do a graduate scheme with my previous employer that was accredited by the ICE. So in theory, I didn't have to go for iEng to then go for my CEng, because I already had that graduate scheme that was accredited, which is essentially the same as the level 7 that you're proposing. In theory, you can do your BEng. You don't have to go for iEng if you don't want to. You can do the level 7 and go straight for CEng later on down the line if you wish. Just gives that flexibility. Which I think a lot of people will be interested in, definitely, because it's been very much a talking topic in the last kind of 4 years or so in regards to IT accreditation. So yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Well, crikey, yeah.
Just yeah,
Millington brought it up at the IAC, so for Network Rail. So
yeah, no, that's great, brilliant presentation, John. Yeah, really interesting. Looking really forward to it. I do see it's as you say, it's naturally it is consultancy based, which is there. Obviously with myself being from a contractor background, I do appreciate that that's there. Do you think in time there would be scope for, say, maybe construction management modules or something like that potentially to be included there? I'm just thinking of, with some apprentices who are contractors, going through their Eng Tech, they'll be very much based in the contracting perspective way of their careers and their jobs. So they might, they'll be interested in it, definitely. It's just more of how they will be able to kind of really get engaged with it, if you see where I'm coming from.
I take that on board. So well, at the moment, it's a sort of chicken and egg in a way. Obviously, you probably recognise the content of those modules that I've just been talking about because you did them, so those are the modules that we're running anyway with BEng, and so the students sit on those, and then alongside that, as the extra, we run these sort of endpoint assessment preparation type work. So we don't have modules sitting there with lots of students on which have that contracting area, the sort of the contracting related work, like the surveying, the CAD, construction management, all of that sort of work is done, as you know, sort of in the first and the second year of the program. So it doesn't sit there. Now, that's not to say that if there wasn't a massive need, we might go down that route. So I'm not saying we wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that, there is the opportunity or the flexibility in the future potentially to, have some of these more practical based modules, shall we say, on the cards potentially. So yeah.
The other thing
just to pick up on that, Jack, it may be that there might be another program that's delivered or developed elsewhere in the university that may actually be suitable for those particular modules you're looking at as well, because construction site management is actually one that is currently in development. So it may be that another apprenticeship may fit slightly more around that skills base that you're looking for. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. So there's the School of Art, Design and Architecture who have a sort of more site management type approach to the industry. So we call them the building surveyors, but they sort of do. They're not in line with the ICE. So it is very much sort of more building contracting work. But yeah, there are other opportunities there. So I don't know if they've got a level 6. They might have.
Okay.
But I think it's the level 6 that's currently in development at the moment.
That's Richard Dorr, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. The other one to just sort of be aware of, I suppose, for your people is there's a level 6 with South Devon College as well. But it's much more management orientated, teamwork, leadership, sort of the softer site skills, if you like, than the BEng design calcs. I mean, we're very much we're really orientated towards what the JBM, the ICE and the iStruct-T require for a BEng graduate, which is fundamentally being able to do the design calculations. So if you take that out, then it really is, it's a very different feel.
But John, it's not just calculation, it's problem solving, isn't it? Yeah,
Sure.
that's the essence of an engineer. So I appreciate what Jack's saying, but as you said, most of those topics are sort of in and out jobs in year one, aren't they? Unfortunately. And yeah, most, and say the BEng essentially is essentially guided on the topics that you're picking up in year three, really.
Yeah.
So your hands are pretty much tied, aren't they?
No, absolutely, and the JBM want to see a certain level in those topics. So yeah, it's fundamentally it's a different beast to do the contracting side.
Sorry, if you did touch on it briefly back there, John, when you were discussing kind of class sizes, it being, you know, that was kind of a different angle. But what I did mean to ask was, you talked about how each of the units is taught in line with the standard third year of the BEng full time. So as a student, would I anticipate being in a lecture with 100 people, or is it going to be a small session just of the degree apprenticeship?
So I think there'll be about well, there are about 40 students in the second year at the moment. So they'll be going on to the third year. So if you were signing up in October, then for the hydraulics, you'd be in a class of about 40. Geotechnics, you'd be in about 40, and then in the wave behind that, there are about 40 in the current first year. So then when you do the structure side, you'll be picking up with them because they'll be the second year next year. So you'll be sitting for the academic parts, you'll be sitting in the class with about 40 or so. But on this year's degree apprenticeship program, there are 2 students. So for the sort of the meetings about the endpoint assessment module and the discussion about that, it really is, it's basically me, Heather, Louise, and 2 students, and we sit and have a discussion about how things are going.
Of course, yeah, that makes sense.
So there's, you know, it's quite a sort of a slow start to the program. So for that bit of it, it's relatively small group.
Cool, thanks.
I don't know, Louise, you were going to say some things, weren't you? But maybe the questions have sort of addressed a lot of those.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll make sure I email you all with the slides that I was going to do. Basically, it's just an overview of obviously what the requirements are in terms of the apprenticeship element. So the support that's in place at the university, as an employer, what your responsibilities are. And then a few other bits. So I'm more than happy to kind of send those through round in email because it has all the information on them anyway. So rather than keep anybody longer, I know we're approaching the end anyway. So
are there any questions that maybe reflect some of what Louise was just saying there, or do you feel that is there anything else that anybody'd like to know? I've got a question for everybody, but that can wait.
No, it's quite cool because obviously myself, an ex-Plymouth graduate, I employ a number of Plymouth graduates. We get to know that essentially Sam will be sort of tagging onto year 3 of the BEng. We all know what he's in for. So he's he's got a decent support network in terms of what we can offer here, and also quite well versed in what he's going to be getting up to. So that's kind of answers all my questions really.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay. No,
I think it's I just want to add, I think it's a really great initiative you've got with this course, for the 2.5 years for apprentices, to go from essentially their level 4-5 to level 6, and come out with a BEng, and in theory they can go for IEng fairly simply as well. So I think it's brilliant what you've got on the cards here. I think a lot of people will be very interested in it as time goes on, as a different kind of route to get in and get a degree, really.
I'd just say the apprentices we've got on now are thoroughly enjoying it. They both are from quite different backgrounds, but they have known each other previously from doing their previous qualifications. And I think, working on their professional development and attending the reviews and seeing what they're doing and the opportunities they're getting and support from their employer has been beneficial as well. So this can only grow and overlap with other programs as well.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much for your time, all. Thank you. And
It's nice to
I'll
hear.
see you in a couple of weeks, John, for the IAC as well.
Absolutely, Jack. I'll drop you an email about that separately. But yes,
No worries.
yes, thanks.
Thanks for
No
your
worries,
time,
not a problem.
everybody.
Thanks all. Have a
you.
good day.
Bye.
Cheers.